Welcome to Sekou Style. Today we're going to be talking about the just ended US African Summit. I mean, it was in Washington, D.C., United States. But before we dive into this discussion, this is going to be straight out just me talking off my head about what's going on and my reaction to some of the commentaries and some of the speeches that happened at the summit. And what I think US African relationship is, where it's heading, and what both sides could do to improve such relations. But before we get into the discussion, again, you know what to do. This is your man Sekou Kesley. Just subscribe to my channel, man. Come on, let's do that. For those of you who already subscribed, just make some comment. Don't be shy. Let's make this interactive. Make some comments, share your thoughts. Share the video with your friends and family. Invite more people to come and like my videos. All right, good. Let's get back to discussion. All right, the U.S. African Summit. First, what happened? Well, a lot of major stuff happened, right? So the Biden administration is making some commitment to African countries, about 50 or so billion US dollars within certain span of time. Covering range of issues from climate change to democracy, leadership and politics around Africa, to some infrastructure and technology development and all the other good stuff, right? That the US government would be sponsoring and helping African leaders, or African countries with the money that they're giving to help alleviate or help with some of the problems that Africa is facing. This is good. I mean, in general terms, when it comes to money or commitment, I think the US commitment was it didn't come as a strange. We all knew that whenever African leaders are called to come here, they're gonna leave with some kind of money. But now, my thing about this is, with all this money, and please don't quote me because I'm like really not freestyling on this, but frankly speaking, all the money and all the commitment from the US, I wanted to see more commitment from African leaders, more taking leadership, right? I feel like Joe Biden, first and foremost, the American government, they didn't prioritize African leaders. Why did I say this? Because this summit, if you know about US foreign policy, this summit was scheduled to have taken place, it should have taken place, I think, right after the UN General Assembly. But right after the UN General Assembly, the US, instead of meeting with African leaders, Joe Biden decided to meet with who? The Asian leader. Because China was meeting with South Asian leaders, Joe Biden too wanted to follow the trend to go meet with those people and push the African leaders to November, December, right? So, to December, sorry. So, for me, it makes me believe that, Africa is still not US priority. Yes, as a Black Africa, as a continent, is being recognized as a awakening giant in the field of politics, as a regional Black. Africa as a continent, the US still hasn't valued it as it's supposed to be valued because of, again, pushing it back, not making it a priority. But also there was some concessions that the US made, or at least have tried to make, which there's more politics behind it. When you really look into it, the US agreed, or at least made a pledge to support an African seat on the UN General Assembly, UN Security Council, which all African countries have been asking for years, right? But again, the US is finally cozying up to the idea. The US is cozying up to the idea that Africa could be on the G20, then it would be G21, because Africa was getting involved as a regional Black, the entire Africa, instead of, right now G20 have few countries, or the top 20 countries, but Africa as a continent will be coming as one unit on the G20, which would make a G21, but still is a decision-making body that is making decisions that impact the entire globe. So Africa not being represented is bad, and America being one of the top decision makers, seeing that yes, Africa needs to be on the table and acknowledging that, I think that's a big step for Africa, but equally so, it just shows how far Africa is still behind as a unit, as a continent, not just one little country in Africa, but as a unit, we're still behind in international politics, right? So these are some of the discussions that was taking place in the meeting, and these are some of my reaction again to it. And another thing that also happened, you know, when you really look at it, that I think African leaders need to start waking up. Ghana president had a brilliant speech about, you know, how Africa, for Africans need to, actually before I even get to the Ghanaian president leader, I think New York mayor made a very fantastic speech about how, you know, African leaders should feel welcome in America now, because I mean, they have, in American government, they have brothers who are at the top, brothers and sisters who are at the top level of American governance. They should come here with their shoulder up, proud to be their brothers and sisters. I think that was really a well-connecting speech. African leaders shouldn't just come to Washington, D.C. and go about business as usual. They should connect with their brothers and sisters in the diaspora, in American politics, and create that bridge. I think that was pretty good. Our Ghanaian leaders came out, you know, swinging pretty much that, you know, African leaders, they shouldn't be beggars. But I think that was just political, wants to appeal to his base and the Pan-African base. But, you know, although I agree with many of what he's saying, African leaders shouldn't be beggars, but in the same token, you are taking money to go to Ghana. You don't want to be a beggar, but then the US is giving you money. You're not saying, no, I don't want the money. To me, that's just mind-blowing. Like, if you don't want to be a beggar, just don't take the money at all. Don't put your country out there. But if you continue talking like that, we all just going to say you're just talking. So there's a lot of grievance. But the politics behind this, though, I think the timing is a little bit more perfect. The US has saying that China and Russia, especially those two countries, are playing bigger roles in Africa, and China is actually really dominating in Africa, and the US wants to get in. The US has always been in, but they want to flex their muscles and, you know, cozy with the African leaders. And I think, you know, with this money, it might work just a little bit, but it's like, it's almost a little too late, because African leaders are turning out, they are believing more in themselves, and their population is, I think, fully behind most of these African leaders, and they're coming saying, hey, you know, it's time for us to be partners, not just subject to be talking to. But I even more so, sometimes I find those discussions, especially African leaders saying they want to be partner with America, I find it a little bit laughable. Again, let me tell you why. I find it laughable because most of them is because of their lack of leadership that Africa is where it is right now, or their countries are where they are right now. So when you come to a world superpower, we all know that it's a power game that is at play. When you come to a world superpower, you want to ask for equal partnership, and you at home, you're not being a good leader to give your people the necessary power that they need for your country to become a power player in the global scene. You are just laughing at yourself. And Americans don't know that. So you just come and make these fluffy, lovely speeches, and then you go back home, you go to things as usual. You have to start thinking outside the box to try to help your citizens. Coming to these meetings, taking selfie with the president of the United States, or taking pictures to go show to your people, those days are becoming obsolete. We need to start thinking beyond that. The people don't want your picture with the American president. They want food in their plates at home. They want to be able to sleep on mattresses. They want to be able to go to the hospital and get better treatment. They want to be able to have law and order, right? So these are some of the real things that typical Africans, they need. So these are things that you guys need to start thinking that you could deliver this thing to your people, not just taking pictures and making lovely speeches. So that's why I laugh, right? That's the reason. And also, we shouldn't forget that you, as a continent, Africa, is being invited. You always see these conferences when they say Africa, China, Africa, Russia, Africa, Germany. These small little countries will invite a whole continent to come for a conference in their places. When Africa gonna start inviting Africa US Summit? Okay, come to Africa. Or US Africa Summit, come to Africa. Go, let's get everybody go to Addis Ababa. That's where the African Union headquarters is. Let's go meet up there. When are we gonna tell Biden to come to Africa? You know, not just go to visit individual countries, but let him come and speak to the African Union as a team. So, you know, and these are some of the things, right? Now, when it comes to politics, the global politics of it, of course, US wants to seal this relationship. So this is time that Africans need to leverage the little power that they have so that they could get more power. The money that is coming, investing in your people, investing in key infrastructure so you could be able to be the next power players, right? So right now, Russia is fighting in Ukraine. It's not going as they planned. China is contracting because of the COVID. The economy is not going as planned. This is time for Africans to start waking up and start taking advantage of all these loopholes. What are we doing? You're still trying to find allies with the United States. You're between China, Russia, Brazil, India, all these places. Still depending on India to feed your people with rice. This shouldn't continue. So all these meetings, they are useless. And most time, they are really meaningless to typical African people. So you guys need to make yourself, this is African leaders now. It is time that your people see real result. The people need to be able to see what's going on. And they need to be able to take that high level meetings that you guys have to see it in their everyday life. And that only happens with the basic necessities, right? So we need to start creating jobs. We need to start doing things that people really want. Not just come to the United States and come for this meeting where you are being called to come. We should be calling, Africa should put herself in a position where global leaders, you guys want to ally with us, come to Africa. How many times the American president go visit Africa? And when they go to Africa, where did they go? They only go to a few countries. Again, still divide and conquer. Now every president wants for the American leader to go visit them. Why they can't just go to Ethiopia, to the African Union and address the African Union? Whatever message. So, but we have these bilateral little meetings in all these countries. Everybody's fighting. So you guys gonna keep fighting each other until nothing is achieved. So that's my take. That's some of my take on this meeting. I think because I'm freestyling off the head, so I might have missed some of the point, but you get the gist, right? I think more of my commentary now, the disrespect that Africa really receives sometimes is it needs to change. America and other countries need to do better when they engage with Africa. But they cannot do better if the African leaders are not taking their role seriously, if they're not demanding better. Yes, the Ghanaian president demand we cannot be beggars. Yes, there has to be a team within Africa that everybody should go home and say we cannot be beggars. Now, who do we need to make sure that we are not beggars? What do we need to do to make sure that our people, we are not beggars? What do we need? We have what it takes, but how to make sure that we are not beggars? So, guys, Africa is a continent. It's a beautiful continent. It's a strong and vibrant continent. You guys could do better. Leaders, you guys could do extremely better. Thank you all for watching. See you next show.